Good.
Cool. I'm here with my boy Frank McKearn. Frank is a former trumpet player. Now he rocks out on the EWI, the
Yeah, I
E.
still got one in my hands.
Oh, dang. Wait, what are you doing with that, boy?
Hey,
What you want?
I've actually started picking it up a little bit, and we're making progress towards getting back on the horn. So good things
Really?
coming.
That is exciting news. We will definitely have to touch on that one in a little bit. In addition, you've also been picking up bass. In, a,
Yeah,
in addition to your already busy audio engineering gigs and teaching.
yeah.
Busy,
Oh yeah.
busy
There's
man.
a lot of stuff going on. I mean, in order to be a musician and a really professional in the entertainment industry, you've got to wear a lot of different hats, and wear them all well. So you got to make sure they fit. And I'm sure you know a lot about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Today more than ever too,
Oh, seriously.
because we've got to be the promoter. We've got to do all the marketing. We've got to do all the managing. It's it's crazy out
And you
here,
got to do all the shedding.
man. Don't even get me started. All right. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your musical background?
So I started playing piano, and one of the quotes my mom likes to say is that I would listen to Bob the Builder. You know, back in the day, we only had PBS. There was no cable growing up, and so
Same.
my mom would walk into the living room, and I would be singing harmony to Bob the Builder, and so that's kind of where my musical career started. It was like 3 years old singing harmony to Bob the Builder and Clifford the Big Red Dog, and what was George Shrinks? George Shrinks was a big
Okay, dude, that one was good.
dude. That was some good stuff. And then Arthur, of course, you know, you can't go wrong with like the kids sitcom. But from that, I actually started on trombone in fourth grade, and then switched to trumpet just because my arms weren't long enough. Right. And so did that for a while, and it was getting time. You know, Frank, you should go to high school. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go to high school. You should do band in high school. I don't really want to do band in high school. You gotta do something to make friends. You're right. You're right, Mom. And so I joined the high school band, and wouldn't you know, they had a great jazz band. Beloit Memorial was taught by the wonderful Chris Behrens, and that kind of really started it all off. I mean, I did the Essentially Ellington thing all 4 years, and started gigging in Madison, and actually just, you know, bars around Janesville, Rock County area is where I'm from. So I was gigging since I was about 15. And like
Nice.
biker bars that evolved, and decided to come to NIU and keep it going. So I played trumpet for Reggie Thomas for about 3 years in his bands, did a lot of great work with combos, tour with the Jazz Tet, as well as doing a lot of stuff outside of school, a lot of gigs in Madison still, more seasonal stuff. The Madison scene is really interesting, and I can touch on this a lot, but everybody's an educator up there, and so it's very oriented around, you know, education. And also the way the gig schedule works is either at night or summer. Like summer festivals are huge, so working with that was cool. And then all of a sudden it ground to a halt, and I had to stop playing trumpet around February of 18 due to some jaw issues. And I picked up, I mean, throughout college I was studying under Dan Nichols for recording arts, so there was definitely a career, music oriented career still lined up. And picked up the EWI, and then later the EV, which is, these are electronic instruments we can talk about later,
Mhm.
and eventually picked up the bass, and I've been a bassist ever since.
Right on, right on.
That's
Can you talk a little bit more about your high school music experience? Because that was fairly unique from what I remember.
Yeah. So Beloit Memorial, when I got there, I placed into the second band, and I had not really played a lot of jazz, but a lot of what Chris Behrens does is he does a lot of the orchestration, but he doesn't do a lot of the teaching, so to speak. He's fostered a community where students are teaching each other, and there's very much a cycle of upperclassmen are teaching underclassmen, underclassmen become upperclassmen and teach the next generation. We had a good pool of alumni and outside professionals that Behrens knew that would kind of come back and foster a learning community. And so I remember the first jazz rehearsal, we didn't play a single chart. We just played C jam blues in the key of G.
Okay.
So right? And so he said, all right, everybody use these 5 notes and learn how to solo at these 5 notes. Right? So like 5, 6, 1, 2, flat 3, not even a blues scale. Just learn how to use those notes. And one day, you know, this was probably like week 2 or 3 of these rehearsals, which are twice a week, Tuesday, Thursday mornings at, well, 3 times a week. So there was one at 6, one, oh, no, this was just jazz 2. So it would have been 2 times a week, Monday nights at 6 and Tuesday mornings at 7. And so after like week 3, I was like, man, you know, I can use this F sharp and this F in there too. And it just kind of went from there. Just, you know, a lot of using your ear and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And there was, yeah, man, if you can figure it out and play it well, do it, make it work. Here's some people that check out that do that, and it's really, you know, we had a kind of a listening room that people would use and hop in there, and it was a really cool learning opportunity. And then, you know, outside of the rehearsals, we toured more than the NIU band did. We were doing a lot of jazz festivals and being clinicked a lot. I remember we had Ron Carter once or twice a year. Reggie Thomas would come up, and a lot of other, the drummer Jeff Hamilton would come in. And then it came around to January, and we're like, yeah, we got to record for this Essentially Ellington thing. And I'm like, what's that? And a lot of people have different opinions on it, which are all well put. But to me, Essentially Ellington was first and foremost a great resource for educators to use, whether or not they go to the festival or not, just in order to teach their kids good repertoire and, you know, good soloing practices.
Well, because even going into that, the schools all get sent charts and like videos of the Jazz Lincoln Center Orchestra talking about the charts.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's focused on like history of the music, what influenced Duke Ellington. It really centers around Essentially Ellington, the music of Duke Ellington, and it, you know, going into the influences of why did Duke write this the way he did? Who is he checking out? And then checking those guys out, and who did those guys check out? You know, you go until there are no physical recordings of those musicians.
Yep. And that's
all the way back to, sorry, go ahead.
That's something that Winton is really big on.
Yeah, like, you know, they're King Oliver, man, I don't know if he has any recordings, or the guy before him had no recordings, but you would trace the lineage. I mean, there's that big picture of the jazz tree. You would chase that jazz tree all the way back until you couldn't chase it anymore. And just knowing like where all these riffs came from and how these riffs evolved into licks and how we got to John Coltrane. It's a real cool world that a lot of people, I feel like a lot of high school educators don't realize exists. And what, you know, they can utilize these resources without having to go to the festival.
Yeah, that's what my high school, we got the resources every year, but we never even submitted a submission.
But I mean, you still learned a lot from doing that, and playing those charts. I mean, especially for the bone players, that's some hard stuff.
Yeah, man. What do you think is your best piece of advice for a young musician trying to learn how to improvise?
Play whatever you want. When it comes down to it, you have to play whatever you want and what wants to come out of you. You know, don't be afraid to play something that sounds bad, because chances are, yeah, it might sound bad the first 5 times you do it, but you're going to figure it out and make it sound good eventually. And a lot of it comes down to soloing within context.
Cool. I think that's very good advice.
You don't need to know the theory for what you're doing. Just do it. And if you like it, do it again.
Play things that sound cool. That's what music really is, you know? It just sounds cool.
Yep.
You don't have to stress. There's no right or wrong. Only what sounds cool to you.
Exactly. I mean, you know, we need to entertain. You know, music is an entertaining thing. So you do have to play to the audience a little bit. But, I mean, jazz musicians are particularly good at kind of stretching the boundaries of what is entertaining and what is art.
Yep. Oh. So, why exactly did you retire from trumpet? I know this, but let's let the folks at home.
So let's see, how do I explain this well? So I made a major breakthrough in trumpet in regards to like sound and long tones and using my air and my physiology in an efficient way. What I thought was an efficient way, at least.
Mhm.
But due to this kind of technique, and it deals with doing long tones and particularly Clark etudes and like the Arben's book in a really like bold manner. I forget the name of the guy. It was something to do with Indiana University. I can't remember the trumpet player.
Bill Adams.
Yeah, dude, Bill Adams.
I mean, I am a huge proponent, and Derek is too, just of the Bill Adams method and ideology, just from studying with Perez, who
Oh yeah,
studied with Bill Adams for a number of years. I don't know. I think it can be very beneficial if you learn how to do it the right way.
I agree. I mean, I've seen people, and it even helped me. I was hitting high notes like crazy. I was playing with a real full, bold sound, and it works for a lot of people. But something in my physiology, particularly my jaw, caused, it exacerbated the problems of the mandibular joint, and so I developed TMJ. And so the doctors, what would happen is that you would get kind of pain and swelling here, and then that would go down and make your face numb, starting kind of at the bottom of the red and slowly creeping up the sides. I noticed this and didn't think much of it, and this would have been like November, December of 2019, and kept playing with moderation, making sure I wasn't overdoing it. But then by the time February rolled around, I was switching to plastic mouthpieces, all this stuff, just to try and get through a gig. And by the time, I think it would have been March or April, Professor Thomas came up to me and said, man, I don't want to see you play. It hurts to watch you play. Just, we're good for a while. Pack it up and do what you need to do to continue your musicianship in a healthy way. And it got down to I could only play about 30 seconds without my entire face getting numb, at least the bottom jaw portion.
Man, that is brutal. And I remember when you were going through that. That was a tough time, man. It's hard to watch.
It's interesting because all physical aspects or discomfort aside, a lot of the loss of ability to play an instrument deals with the mental toll. And to just, I'm not going to play this right now. I'm doing a ton of other things. I've got recording gigs. I've got, a lot of other things going on that I can be, let the musician will always be a musician. The music will always come under the musician. And it wasn't a big deal for me to pack up the trumpet mentally just because I had other things going on. But I do realize that other people were invested and enjoyed me playing, enjoyed hearing me playing, and I did feel bad that I wasn't able to do that. So
Yeah, well, I mean, you were able to make some adjustments, and for the music, you picked up the EWI and bass. Can you talk a little bit about picking those up and
yeah,
some of the challenges you had to overcome?
so I had to sound like it was the end of I stopped playing trumpet. A month later, it was the end of the semester, and then I started a residency gig at Birch Creek doing sound, which was a really cool time. Being surrounded by all this music, and I couldn't touch any of it. It was. I remember Liam Teague came in. Sorry to just keep speaking about the negatives of trumpet, but Liam Teague, amazing steel pan player. Birch Creek it's 4 sessions, percussion, symphony, and 2 sessions of big band jazz. And Liam Teague, we have this big meeting with everybody, and Liam says, Professor Teague says, hey, is Frank able to join me on a tune? And then the director of the camp said, hey, yeah, Frank can't play anymore. And I guess Liam, I wasn't there at the meeting, but Liam just put his head down on the table and said, oh. And so just being around all that music was a little difficult. But eventually I got back to school in the fall, and Rob Nordley, amazing tenor saxophone player living in the suburbs. I mean, Nick knows him. That man can play.
He's a good guy too. He has a heart of gold.
Oh, seriously. And so he gave me his EWI, which I knew pretty much nothing about, and said, "Learn this." It's like, this thing looks disgusting. Yeah, I'll give it a shot. Sorry, just setting up a prop for the phone. All right. And so I don't have it here anymore because I eventually gave it back to him.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the the EWI is, it's a synthesizer shaped like a clarinet, and it uses, like nickel pads that use the electrical current, or like the lack thereof, in your fingers on these nickel pads to select which note you want and then send MIDI information out to some synthesizer. But it had, there was a mode, there's modes for saxophone, oboe, flute, whatever you want, because it's, it has all the pads to a woodwind. Mm-hmm. But there was a mode for brass, and so this mode had 3 valves, and I was like, well, that's cool, but how do I, if I'm only gonna play, right, that's all you can do with just using these, it's 7 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's all I can do.
That's
so
lame.
How am I gonna change keys? How am I gonna get to the second half of the octave? Well, this thing has some really awkward rollers in the back that you can use to select which octave you want. And if you press one button, you go down a fourth. So the equivalent of a right?
Oh, okay.
You can activate the whole octave, and then by moving your thumb, you can get to different octaves. And so I started playing that in Jazz Tet. I remember it took me about 24 hours to finally figure it out. I think I shed that thing for about 8 hours.
That's it.
I got home, I was like, wow, this is actually pretty cool. And it works by responding to your breath, and will articulate and create volume based off of the input of some wind gate that's in there. Sorry, I'm a really technical guy because I'm an audio engineer. And so there's a wind gate in there that will detect the air pressure. And now this is an open system compared to a closed system like the EV. So it'll detect the amount of pressure going through this wind gate and then create an amplitude based upon that pressure. So I felt pretty confident on it. I shed it for about 8 hours, and Frenchie Romero said, "Yeah, come into Jazz Tet. We'd love to have you." So I started reading charts, and I was, wow, I haven't read music in 8 months. This feels weird. But it was the first time in a while that I actually, oh wow, I'm hitting this hard stuff. And it probably sounded like crap, but it felt good. I was finally, oh wow, I went from A flat to C in time. And so I started playing that and just put on a metronome and some backing tracks and started relearning all the tunes I used to be able to play on trumpet, and trying to refigure out the vocabulary that I had and translate it to this new instrument.
Yeah, and you ended up actually playing the saxophone fingerings, right?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's too much to worry about.
Yeah.
Trumpet only has 3 valves, which makes it nice. Saxophone has like 23 keys, I think. This is a trumpet chat. We don't care.
Dude, that's the only reason anyone plays trumpet, is because there's only 3 buttons, dude.
Trombone, 7 positions. We don't want to think that far. 3 valves. Right?
I can barely count to 4 most days. If you give me a chart in 5, I can't play it.
You only play slow waltzes. That's the way to go.
Yeah, there you go. And cut time marches.
Yeah, right.
Now, what about picking up bass? What drew you to wanting to learn that?
Well, EWI was cool, but it wasn't a very natural instrument. And I realized that every gig that I was going to have, I would need to create for myself. And bass seemed just, oh yeah, this is cool. I mean, I live in a house with 2 bassists. So,
Free,
so it was,
free
you know,
lesson.
there are basses around. I can annoy Chano and play his a little bit. And you know, at Birch Creek in the summer is kind of when I picked up an acoustic bass, and you know, it's like, I gotta figure this out. It's the only instrument I can really play. Piano is 88 keys. That's way too many to think about, and I'm not coordinated enough to play drums. So bass is really the only instrument left because, you know, I can't play any wind instrument, or at least that's what the doctors said. No saxophone, no flute. And so bass was really it. So I picked one up and I was like, oh, this feels terrible. And I eventually learned to live with it. And then what really got me hooked on bass was I work at this venue in Beloit College doing sound. And I eventually one night after close, just, you know, wasn't feeling too great, but there was somebody had left an electric bass there. And so I put on a Mac Miller album and just sat down and learned how to play bass to that Mac Miller album. You know, it felt really nice.
Do you remember which one?
Say again?
Do you remember which one?
It was swimming pools.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I just got down there, learned how to play swimming pools, and it was, you know, it felt great. You know, I'm going through this sound system I designed, feeling very egotistical. Oh man, I'm cranking this stuff. This feels great. And you know, after like 4 hours of playing that, I was able to play all the bass lines on the whole album, and I realized, you know, this translates pretty well into the left hand, just like Trumpet did. There's no reason I can't get proficient at this. And so, you know, I was given a 5-string for some work on a session that I did, and then eventually I got an upright, and I've been playing them both ever since, either on like hip hop gigs, funk gigs, and now I'm doing a couple sessions with some cats over at Lawrence University playing upright. So it's been a real fun, and I just got done with a session today playing for Ben Walland in the NIU percussion studio.
Nice.
So
right on, man.
I made a wedding band. You know, I shouldn't say this, but I was quarantining at a church during the summer of the pandemic, and so there was a need for wedding bands, and so I hobbled together a wedding band and was playing bass in that. So I'm proud to say I'm a gigging bassist.
There you go, man. And I'm sorry, I'm a little anxious to hear about your possible return to the horn.
Yeah. So, you know, this is my first trumpet, actually. I gave it to Ryan Kruger, and great trombonist. Man can play any chart you throw.
Shouts out to Ryan Kruger. Ryan Kruger lifts. Follow him.
Dude, Ryan Kruger lifts. You got a good laugh out of Chano from that one. But, you know, I come back here, and I was like, you know, this thing kept staring at me. You know, it doesn't have eyes, but, you know, when the trumpet stares at you, like, yeah, you should really practice today. You need to do at least 5 minutes of long tones, or you're going to get roasted on your next gig.
Yep.
And so I picked it up, and I just played one note. And I was like, wow, that really doesn't feel too bad. And so I was able to do long tones for a couple minutes without feeling any pain here, right? No numbness, no tingling feeling. You know, there's normal chop fatigue, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But you know, the only issue right now is just the joint itself.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that, you know, I've been speaking to a lot of different neurologists, anatomists, and particularly a chiropractor who has an interest in seeing me play trumpet again. And they've been telling me that, yeah, it's actually a thing that can happen with people with your physiology, that your jaw will kind of reset in the ages between 20 and 25. And so they're fairly confident that this kind of phase I'm having will end, and eventually I'll be able to, you know, my jaw will be set and not moving, and I'll be able to pick up the horn slowly but surely by the time I'm around 25 or so.
Yeah, and how old are you now?
I'm 22 currently.
I mean, that ain't that far away.
No, not at all. And I mean, if I get good at bass,
make sure you don't hurt yourself again, dog.
Oh, of course. Yeah, you got to take it easy, but have fun.
Do you have fun? Do you think not playing for so long may have like help some things heal, or?
I definitely agree. I mean, trumpet's a brutal instrument.
And you were
Sometimes,
playing a lot of horn, man.
I mean, yeah, I was playing probably 5 or 6 hours a day between shedding, rehearsals, gigs, recording sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I think one of the mistakes was I started playing lead in studio bands because, I was doing all that Bill Adams stuff. I felt great. I was like, oh yeah, I've been hitting like high E's, high F's, sometimes a high G, I've got this. And I think, not taking care of myself in regards to the horn was kind of a detriment and really exacerbated some of the issues that I was prone to genetically from just the jaw in general. But, hopefully these will subside, and I would love to get on the horn, but if not, the EWI and the EV are a great way for me to kind of they've been a great way for me to teach trumpet and improvising.
Absolutely.
And even if I doubt, I don't want to say I'm hopeful or not hopeful, because it honestly doesn't matter to me. But if I would be able to just teach, third or fourth graders or even middle schoolers, just the fundamentals of trumpet, that's kind of the goal, is just to be able to use the knowledge I had. Let's face it, a lot of my detriment has been due to some of the anatomical deficits that I've had in dealing with the jaw issues. And I think I had a decent trumpet technique and tips that I would love to share with people.
Yeah, people need to know. People need to know.
People need to know.
Good teachers out there.
The instrument's only one thing, but it's about what you do with the instrument that's the other. And I feel like my ability to teach people how to solo and how to improvise and create their own thing with the music, whatever it would be, jazz, funk, soul, or whatever improvisational mediums they're using, has not been affected by my lack of ability to perform on the trumpet.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you adapted. You overcame. You improvised. That's
what it is.
That's the changes of life, man. That's a 2-for-1 right there.
Amen.
All right. And then let's talk a little bit about your other love, audio engineering.
Yeah.
What do you love about
audio is a great thing. Especially now, everybody should know how to make their Zoom audio sound decent, right? Now, to you, Instagram's a little annoying because it's a mobile-only platform. You can use a computer with it by knowing a little bit of coding, but in general, Instagram is primarily a mobile-only platform, which Apple and Samsung, to some success, have really centered on the media creation experience. I mean, that was one of the fundamental features of Steve Jobs' Next computers and how he brought that operating system onto Mac OS, which is before OS X. It really centered on media creation. And so the iPhone is really the epitome of, oh, you have a microphone in your pocket, you have a camera in your pocket. I have great recordings of bands where I just put my iPhone on a table and that's it. Do some compression in post, do some EQ in post, activate. So voice memos, pro tip, voice memos on your iPhone or probably your Android has built-in compression, right? But you can turn this off in settings. I think it's like settings, voice memos, and you just set it to lossless and you get the uncompressed audio. And that is the best microphone you have is the one you have on you.
Wow. I did not even know that. I appreciate the tip.
Yeah, seriously, like that. You can record, if you've got a band in a room, you like just do that and you're set. You don't need like $5,000 worth of microphones and recording gear to get a good quality recording.
Yeah, it's really crazy the time we live in. Like it's so accessible to do kind of whatever you want through the internet. It really is the great equalizer.
Seriously. Which is why we should all have access to it, and the internet should be, a public commodity. But that's a subject for a separate time.
That's another thing. But I mean, without the internet, we couldn't be sharing all this knowledge with folks.
Right, right. I mean, we're
For
both
free.
of our, even though
For
we're both,
free.
I'm assuming you're in DeKalb, I'm in DeKalb.
Yeah.
Our phones are going to Chicago, some server in Chicago, coming back here, and then going out to all of our viewers. So,
Yeah, and no Rona. No Rona.
but exactly. But in terms of how I got my start in audio engineering, there was this guy I knew in high school, Andrew Artrecci, who goes by the name OKT98. You can find him on Instagram, Twitter, the whole shebang.
Cool.
OKT98.
I saw him in the chat earlier.
Yeah, dude, he's a great engineer. Let's see. So he got me started. I mean, we met in high school. Didn't really talk much in high school, which is a shame, because he's a funny guy. He's a great guy to know and real solid personality. But he invited me to the studio one night the summer after high school and was like, "Hey man, come here and lay down some horn tracks for me." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it." And I was like, "Wow, this microphone is cool. This is this is my first time really in a studio."
Mm-hmm.
And this is great. And then eventually there was another guy there by the name of Smitty, SMIDDY_. You can find him on Instagram, Twitter, and the whole shebang. But eventually I started doing a little bit of engineering for Smitty, just like, man, sit in the chair, hit record. Here's how you talk back to me. And you can do some do-overs and, engineer for me. And from that, I started doing my own stuff, not really know what I was doing in like GarageBand and Logic. And then I went to school at NIU, and my sophomore year, actually, before I stopped playing trumpet, I realized, man, I really don't want to take music theory 3 and 4 and 5.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
I really don't want to do that. This stuff has been ruining my ear. It's not helping my musical performance. It's not helping my musicianship. I want out. And so Brandon Bott stopped me in the hallway. Brandon Bott's like a crazy audio engineer. Dude can play any instrument you throw at him. Insane percussionist and a pretty good bassist too.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said, Frank, just become a recording arts major. I was like, we have that? Yeah, how do you think all their concerts get recorded? Oh, right. And so, I met Dan Nichols, Grammy awarded engineer. I actually just saw him today for a little bit. He was in helping the current grad assistants. And I learned so much from that man. I took his editing class, his mixing class, his intro to recording arts classes, and learned so much about signal flow, electricity, wiring, was like everything to do with electronics, everything to do with audio, like recording, post-production. Started working for him on a private basis, doing some video work at a couple different universities and organizations, and was really gigging with him in Chicago for a while. And so just the ability to use a microphone and a camera and and have a musical background going into that is really a powerful thing that I think a lot of audio engineers lack, is that they don't understand what the musician wants.
Or needs, for that matter.
Right. What does the musician need both physically and mentally in this recording session to get a good take?
Absolutely.
And so I think, NIU and definitely the outside world definitely prepared me for that. And then I got a regular gig working sound at a bar in Beloit, which had 2 3-act shows a weekend. And eventually they had their main venue was downstairs. The building had to close. They had to close their downstairs, and then we reopened. And I get a call one day after like 8 months of the place being closed saying, "Hey, we want you to rebuild the sound system upstairs." And so I rebuilt this beautiful, completely analog sound system, a Soundcraft GB2 as the main board, all analog compression, EQ, and built a sound system that works pretty well in the room. Great tops, great subs, great monitors. And that was really, 2 or 3 times a weekend with 6 or 7 bands. That was a shed.
Yeah, that's a magic growing dust right there.
Seriously, sound check at 7, band starts at 10, you go until 2, And that was, you know, how do you survive as an audio engineer working late night gigs? You know, that's the epitome of it.
Coffee, Red Bull.
Lots. Good thing we kept a stash of instant coffee, and that was a lifesaver more than one night.
And instant coffee is great too, because if it's, you know, you get to control how hot the water is, so you can just slam it.
You can just eat the grounds. No.
Man, you're ruthless.
No, I never got that far. But I mean, it was a great shed, and what a lot of musicians would come through there that had, you know, some have been to bigger venues, and some had never been to a venue before, but giving everybody an experience of, yeah, I'm a musician too. I know what you want. I know how to get you what you want. You may not understand all of the technical aspects of what you want, but if you tell me what you need as a musician, I have the technical ability to get it to you. And not only was it a shed and, oh, I've got to twist this knob, move this, plug this in here, understand what goes on there, that all becomes second nature. Really, the shed for an audio engineer is how do you communicate efficiently and how do you communicate effectively.
Definitely, and I can definitely attest to how great it is to work with you, because I worked with you recording for that one song for Rotten Mouth out in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I just remember I was a little stressed out going into it, but you were just like, all right, no, you can do better. You can do better. And then you helped me figure out what I need to do to finish it up. And I appreciate that.
Oh, of course. And it is interesting because, you know, as an audio engineer that's a musician, you know when somebody can do better. And it's, do I want to lose the client by like telling them?
Especially with you know, someone like me. We've played together for a few years now, you know, so you're very familiar with my capabilities and such.
I mean, we have a good relationship that I felt comfortable, like, oh yeah, I can tell Nick, yeah, man, that was trash. You got to do it again. I know you can do it better. I've heard you play lines like this better. But, you know, working with a client that you may not know too well, it's a very fine line between, yeah, you can do this again. I know you can do better, or crap, I'm about to lose this client because I'm making them do another take.
Yeah,
thankfully that hasn't happened. But, you know, there were some times where I was in my head, is this really the right decision to make? But at the end of the day, a lot of people are very thankful when you say, yeah, I'm happy I'm happy you made me do another take. That was really the one we wanted compared to the first one. So
yeah, because I feel like at the end of the day, the most important part about recording as a musician is being happy with the final product. Like that's kind of it. That's the whole point. You know?
The musician doesn't care about what you know about EQ or compression or reverb. They just want, does this sound good to me or not? And that's all it is. And the fact that there's so many engineers that don't know that and that will try to explain to you, yeah, I'm going to take out this notch of 400, blah, 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 decibels. Dude, no one cares. Just make it sound good. Make it saucier. What does saucier mean?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, I want more reverb on it. You have to translate, oh, man, put that sauce on it.
That stank sauce.
Stank sauce. You know, why is it sound so loud? And as the engineer, you take that and say, oh, that's because, you know, he has a lot of high end or his mids are over punching and he needs that turned down, especially in live sounds. Oh, this sounds loud. No, not really. You've just got a lot of stuff hogging up the same area in the frequency spectrum. You just got to learn how to balance these things accordingly. And you have them, you know, either a good studio or live experience.
Right on, right on. Kind of circling all back around, how do you think your audio experience has affected you as a musician?
Well, I'll tell you, the first thing that really comes to mind is with bass, because, you know, trumpet, there's no battery in this thing, right?
Yeah,
there's no battery. And, you know, a lot of people learn audio engineering because they've messed around with amps and they've messed around with pedals. But for me, it's the opposite. I learned how to mess around with pedals, and I learned how to mess around with amps because I know stuff about audio engineering. So when I started playing EWI, it was like, oh, this amp sounds bad. Oh, crap. If I dial down lows, turn down my mids and boost my highs a little bit, or like turn down my highs, boost my lows, keep my mids a little left and center, stuff will sound better. Especially on bass. I guess I don't have an active bass here, but my 5-string is a great Fender Jazz. Chano's gonna give me his active bass.
Oh, right on.
give him. But there's a lot of knobs and bells and whistles on basses, and I'm like, what does all this do, right?
Yeah, more than 3 buttons.
Yeah, I got 3 buttons, and I've got this slide that comes out.
And the spit comes out too. Oh no.
Grody, COVID. Here Chano comes with an active bass.
Oh, shout out Chano Cruz.
Can you hand me that cable by chance? And crank that focus right. Oh, let's see. So bass, right? There's a ton of stuff here. All right, you can't even see these knobs because it's black on black. I'll just talk about them. So, right, so it's pretty obvious. There are 4 knobs and 2 switches here. It's like, crap. All right, well, this one's volume. And when I was first learning about compression, especially in the analog way, you don't know what attack and release. I mean, you know what they theoretically do, but you don't know what they do to the sound, right? So with bass, it's, one of these is volume. Okay, that makes sense. I've got 2 different pickups, so this little switch here must decide what? Well, this one is not 2 pickups, but mine is, okay? Sorry, Chano. It must be like an active passive switch. Well, I'm going to play with this one like it's mine. Here, you can just take it back. But one of these must be the mysterious tone knob people are talking about. What does that do to the sound? If it's halfway up, if it's all the way up, if it's fully attenuated, what does this do? Oh, one of these must be EQ for the low and the high. One of these must be. Chano says 3-band EQ. Interesting. Why would it be with a switch?
Because Stingrays are.
It's a Stingray. All right, cool. I don't know what that means. I'm still pretty fresh to bass, but you just turn all these knobs. And you're like, oh, what does this do? And you use those critical listening skills that you've learned in audio engineering. That's what helped me learn how to physically manage the bass and the output of the bass.
Wow, that is a lot more than 3 buttons.
Yeah, you've got active versus passive, you've got EQ, you've got gain, you've got volume, you've got pickup selection. What do all these things do? And you've just got to listen. This is messing with the sound in this way. It's giving me more attack, less attack, more like a synth sound. And you can, then you listen to the recordings, right? Take like a good PJ Morton tune, you're like, oh man, this bass player sounds great. Like this sounds great in the mix, but my bass doesn't sound like that.
What's he doing differently?
Right. And then eventually you kind of gain the skills to learn, oh, these 2 are just sitting here playing bass. It's pretty funny to see. The house of bass, and of course Ryan's bass is right here because Ryan Kruger played too.
The bass house, man.
Yeah. But you listen to the recording, you're like, oh, he's using his bridge pickup. He's got this much tone knob on it. He's got this EQ going on. And it's the same skills you learn in recording, where it's like, oh, this voice is compressed by a ratio of 4:1. Here's the threshold. Here's the attack and release. Eventually, you can kind of model this by listening to it. And it's the same thing with bass, is what I eventually figured out, that I can model people's tones by listening to them and adjusting my own bass until it matches that, or as similar as I can get it.
Cool, cool. Right on. I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap things up here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll go on all night.
Yeah,
You're right.
seriously.
We need to talk soon, man. For real,
Oh,
call me.
dude. Yeah, I'm down.
But how can people get a hold of you for audio services, freelance recording on EV or bass, or for lessons?
So I use my personal cell and my personal email for all of my work. It just keeps it really nice. So my cell phone is, feel free to spam me or like, you know, send odd texts at 1 a.m. Sure, I might respond.
Careful what you wish for.
What again?
Careful what you wish for.
Yeah, whatever. It's not the worst. Somebody named Kyle from Milwaukee put my number down to refinance his house, so I'm getting those spam calls all the time.
I'm gonna have to remember not to do that.
Yeah, just say your name is Kyle and it'll make sense.
Okay.
Or my email, McKearnFrank@gmail, McKearn@gmail, or send me a DM on Instagram. I should say I don't have notifications on for Instagram or any social media apps. The documentary The Social Dilemma really did a deal on me, and so now I only have notifications on my phone for calls, texts, and emails and Facebook Messenger. But yeah, McKearnFrank@gmail.com. Send me an email, send me a text. I'd love to make you sound the way you want to sound, if not better, in terms of audio recording. Or if you need any synth lines, bass lines, let me know. I have a very qualified studio at home that I can get you some quality stuff back to.
Yeah, and what all can you teach?
So I can teach trumpet fundamentals somewhat. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not the best to teach trumpet fundamentals based off of where I am right now. But if you need improvisation lessons, theory lessons, or even writing lessons, I'm very happy to sit down with you, any age level, and just kind of break away the barriers. Anything is possible, right? Especially, when I was learning bass, I haven't taken too many bass lessons, but one of them was, why aren't you able to do this? Just do it. And so a lot of improvising is, we get so stuck up in our heads. And a lot of what I've done is kind of break down these barriers we make for ourselves and just let our musicianship come out.
Yeah, that's something that me and Derek were talking about a few weeks ago, just because that's just something is so overlooked in music. Like, it's so obvious, but it's not talked about as much as it should be. How much of music is like the mental side and just you setting yourself up. You've got to believe
to use
yourself.
Derek as an example, I mean, he was in my wedding band this summer.
Mhm.
And to hear him from when he first got here as an improviser, I mean, he's always been a great trumpet player. That's what the Marines will do to you.
Yeah.
But to hear him kind of, it's very obvious. The reason he's become a good improviser is because he's gotten rid of a lot of these mental blocks that have stopped him from releasing really his true self.
Yeah, now he takes way more chances and ends up in a lot of cool places musically.
Yeah. And, improvise, to just keep talking about improvising for a second, improvising takes time. You've got to do it wrong at least 20 times to make it sound good every time.
Mm-hmm. And even then.
But I got to touch on, what I can do for anyone listening. I'm very capable. I have a great internet connection at home. So if you want remote Zoom lessons with audio recordings, I'm happy to remote into your computer and, show you some stuff either like via Chrome Remote Desktop or via Zoom, and, show you how to use the DAW, how to set up your own home equipment for, better Zoom quality, how to make your instruments sound good for remote recordings. Virtual big bands and virtual recordings are huge now. I've probably got 5 or 6 projects of bands that are just piled up. A bunch of students will send in their submissions, just iPhone recordings. And you got to mix them, make them sound good. But some of what I've been doing is, reaching out to schools and doing Zoom master classes saying, here's what you all should get. Here's, the band director, give everybody this USB microphone and, have maybe like get a couple rotating sets of equipment you can just check out to different students. And here's how they can record their own recording, like their own instruments and their parts efficiently and quickly so that you guys can get a quality sound and a quality product to do. Like, I hate using the word product.
I don't mind it.
music should be more than a product, but I guess sure, a quality product that you can put out to an audience in a virtual format.
Nice. Out here fighting the good fight for the kids, dude.
It honestly, it really is all about the kids.
Absolutely. Now more than ever.
Because the kids shaped, we were all kids. All
Yeah.
kids weren't adults.
We're still
In order-
kids. Pretty
In order
much.
to have good adults in this world, you've got to have good kids. So.
Absolutely. Well, on that one, before we start talking about something else, man, I think I'm gonna go ahead and just cut this off here. Thank you so much for joining this, and I had a lot of fun.